Okay, a quick introduction about myself. I've been working in the NHS since 1978, so I'm relatively old. And I've been at the sharp end within the estate, so I'm well versed in plant rooms, working in plant rooms, and then over time I've sort of carved a career within the NHS. So the presentation today is really the University Hospitals Birmingham, our journey on zero carbon with support from CEF. I think it's stood the test of time over the years with CEF. Probably 15 years ago we did our first project with CEF, and then over periods we've worked through with SALIX funding. So for my priority really from an operational estates background was zero carbon was clearly a priority, but also we looked at opportunities that we could improve our aging, replace our aging assets and improve our infrastructure, which was probably my main driver, if I'm honest. I lived and breathed in terms of the steam systems that we've got on the three hospitals, and I was looking for opportunities how we could invest in new infrastructure to replace that steam infrastructure. Clearly, as a consequence of that, we've reduced backlog, and we've also tried to look at the patient environment and improve that environment for the patient and improve patient care. University Hospitals Birmingham is one of the largest trusts in the country. We have 4 hospital sites: Heartlands Hospital, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Good Hope Hospital and Surrey Hospital, and also we have a number of communities, so we are a very, very big trust. Challenges of the decarbonisation programme. I think one of the challenges is we had to persuade our trust to basically invest in terms of the SALIX funding, put some funding in our capital, which we were very fortunate with our CFO, and he's currently our CFO, who's very supportive of the SALIX project. So in generally we've had no problems in funding a small percentage of the SALIX funding, which is now a requirement. And I think the current requirement for SALIX is 12%. I think in the early stages of SALIX, where we had 1-year schemes, that was really challenging when you're going through a procurement process and you're trying to deliver projects, infrastructure, de-steaming within 1 year. It's damn near impossible. I think it's fair to say that SALIX over time have listened, and our latest PDS4 project is now a 3-year project. We've also seen delays with issues within our aging estate, such as asbestos. We've carried out rigorous surveys over time, but when you start stripping out plant room, clarifiers, etc., we found more asbestos than we'd realised, and that put delays into projects and also increased the cost of that project. And the asbestos element of the projects was basically was part of the trust commitments that we had to fund those, in addition to the funding that we had to put into the SALIX project. Legacy equipment, again, some of the systems that we had were 40, 50 years old, and it was no surprise to us when we started to strip out plant rooms for new equipment, new plant, that valves didn't hold, so we were having to shut off larger areas of the hospital than we would have liked to enable the new infrastructure to be installed. And certainly, lastly, the impact and disruption to the hospitals. Probably some here have worked in an operational estate environment, and it's a 24/7 operation, and everything we do, we have to keep the lights on, we have to keep the heating on, we have to keep the hot water. So again, managing that process with the clinical teams was challenging. I think over time we've built up better relationships with the clinical teams, so there is now some confidence when we go to the meetings and start explaining what the impacts to them. There is a level of confidence with the clinical teams that what we say is what will happen. When we first started these projects, there was a nervousness that, we might say the shutdown was for 8 hours and it might be 2 days. So that's certainly been a challenge in working in a live aging estate hospital environment. In summary, we've got a number of PDS schemes, and I suppose the bottom line is this: our trust, with support from SEF, has been hugely successful in securing £87 million worth of sale-ex investment for the estate, which clearly is helping our backlog maintenance. And actually, what we're also seeing as we get practical completion from projects, we're seeing less maintenance costs from replacing the ageing steam plant, from replacing maintenance of clarifiers, incessant steam leaks, condensed receivers having to be replaced, pumps. So the 87 million has been a real boost to our trust for backlog maintenance and investment in the infrastructure. And in terms of overall carbon savings, over the lifetime is nearly 300,000, so which is not an insignificant amount for the 4 hospitals. So we are hugely proud of what we're achieving and what we have achieved. Still work to do, but I think the numbers alone are very satisfying. Very quickly, I'll just run through each hospital. Heartlands Hospital, inner city, at the east side of Birmingham. So very simply, we de-steamed the site, and only recently did we turn off the last steam boiler, and at the moment we're refurbishing the energy centre, and that was 850 kilowatts cascade heat pump system, and also air source heat pumps, which feeds into the heat pump. Low temperature hot water district heating main. I'll skip some of these, and then there was also some electrical works, and the non-PDS, the 1.5 megawatt CHP that we've installed is bringing us huge savings in terms of our electrical costs. So I understand that CHP at the moment is not necessarily carbon friendly, because we're still using gas, and we're in discussion within NHS to see if we can get some movement to use biofuel for CHP. And on the second Heartlands Hospital, again, we looked at a little bit more on building fabric, double glazing, cavity wall insulation, solar PV, and then BMS optimisation. What I've found over time is that we spend a lot of money on building management systems, and we don't necessarily get all the benefits that we should. So we're having a concerted effort within the trust to try and utilise and optimise our BMS system to see if we can get some savings and optimisation on our secondary sites. Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which is the largest hospital, which is a hybrid of a hospital in many ways. We've got a very large PFI, and I'll come on to the PFI a little bit later on the slides. And then we've got the heritage site, which originally planned for closure, but because of the expansion of capacity, it remained open, which is bringing us huge challenges for our infrastructure. Basically, the building was practically decommissioned, and we've started to fill it back up with inpatient areas and non-inpatient areas. So the a 1 megawatt cascade heat pump system, again, we're de-steaming, and that at the moment is where phase 1 3D PDSA is largely finished, and we're at the proving point. I think I'll move on. Good Hope Hospital, another hospital, PDS 3A, that has received practical completion, and the feedback I'm getting from the operational teams is very, very positive. They're seeing less breakdowns. The on-call staff that were previously out regularly over a weekend and of evenings with heating systems and hot water system issues, the operational guys are complaining now that they're not getting enough call-outs, and they're losing money on their pay packet. So for me, that's a real positive, because actually what we've put in is working, and it's working more efficiently, and it's working better, and it's also saving us money. NHS, we all know it's got some huge challenges with cost improvement programs, so this is enabling our trust to declare those cost improvement program in terms of maintenance savings from clarifier, insurance checks, maintenance, steam valves, etc. So Good Hope has been hugely successful, and proof of the pudding is the eating, and the feedback we're getting from all the estates and the clinical teams is very, very positive. Solihull Hospital, again, on the first phase of PDS 3A, we again a Cascade 650 kilowatt Cascade heat pump system, and low temperature hot water heating and distribution, pumping, some electrical works on the RMU for the CHP, LED lighting, and then cavity wall insulation was quite challenging. Solihull Hospital, it is a nucleus build. It was built between 1990 and 1994. And in fact, I was the commissioning engineer back in the day, so I was on site for 4 years. And we had to come up with a process where we were injecting the cavity wall insulation without putting any of the, while the wards were live, without putting any of the patients at risk. So we did a number of tests on an area that was unoccupied to ensure that what we were putting into that cavity didn't affect any patients within the ward environment. And we worked very closely with infection control, and we did 3 quite rigorous testing in the end, and we were air monitoring the on the side up where the patients would be, and we came up with a process that worked. And again, we're seeing reductions in heating bills as a consequence of that cavity wall insulation. PDS 3B was again the other half of the heritage, which is the older estate in the on the Queen Elizabeth site, and it's really and we've installed additional another heat pump. Originally, we were hoping for an open loop ground source heat pump system, but as we worked through, it became evident that that wasn't viable. So we did have to step back and go for air source, which was a little bit disappointing for me. And at the moment, we're in the installation period of that phase. So we're looking to completely de-steam the QE heritage site by June of next year. The second scheme at Solihull Hospital was related to, again, more Cascade heat pumps, air source heat pumps, and by optimisation of air handling units in terms of changing to a lower temperature, which again was challenging. We've had to work very closely with theatre staff for closing theatres while we change air handling units, and work very closely with infection control to make sure that we're not contaminating any of the areas that where we're installing these heater batteries. That's in progress at the moment, and we're looking at March 2026 for that energy centre to be fully operational. And finally, on the PDS 4 schemes, we were successful on a geothermal solution at the QE hospital. We decided, because of some of the data, to do a further feasibility study before we went full gung-ho into the process. And what we found on that second, more detailed feasibility, we just weren't getting the heat output that we originally thought we would. We were either getting lots of low-grade heat, temperatures between 5 and 10 degrees, or limited amount of water coming out at 25, 30 degrees. So we've had a rethink with CEF, working very closely with CEF, in terms of what we could do to still deliver the carbon savings, which is 4,700 per annum, with the capital envelope that we received from Salix. We've looked at a scheme with Andy Gates and his team, where particularly at the QE hospital, we have a cooling problem in temperatures of anything higher than about 26 degrees. The hospital starts to overheat, and a couple of years ago, when temperatures reached 39, 40 degrees, we had to close a lot of our diagnostic equipment, and it was quite catastrophic for that particular day. So we do have an issue at the QE with cooling, and we're looking at various interventions to improve that temperature chillers. What we've submitted to Salix is a hybrid solution, where we're looking at installing new chillers with heat recovery, and then a proof of concept of geothermal. And the feedback we've had thus far from Salix has been relatively positive, and we're hoping that we will receive some notification in the next couple of weeks whether we can proceed on this with this change control of the QE. And the feedback we've had thus far has been quite positive from Salix, and I think the long and short of it is if we can deliver a scheme within the same capital envelope and the same carbon savings, I think they will be really receptive for us to proceed. And for me, it's a win-win because it should help, I won't say solve, but it should certainly improve the chilling issues that we've got in the new hospital. So I've been looking at these PDS schemes for a number of years, and for me, one of the keys is prepare in advance prior to the grant opening. You know, you've got to give it some thought. What can we do, which is in the criteria of the grant, and it has changed over time with PDS. Originally, it was easier to get LED lighting and other types of interventions. Less so now. Identify and engage with key stakeholders, and when I say key stakeholders, I'm really the executive teams, but also the clinical teams as well, so they understand in terms of what we're planning to deliver, and they've got some understanding what the likely impacts are to them. We clearly try to minimise that impact, but with the best will in the world, if you're replacing major infrastructure in a hospital, there will be some operational impacts. Really picking up on and really looking at schemes and trying to look outside the box really in terms of what you can deliver. We're in the one of the hospitals, Solihull Hall Hospital. We will be turning the CHP off in the next 12 months, and actually that will probably cost us. We've modelled that through about £500,000, but we're looking at other options how we can offset that. Potentially lobbying NHSI to allow us to use biofuel on a CHP. Obtain buy-in from operations and capital works. One of the challenges that I found, and it may be because is because of the projects being so involved with the hospital environment. If you're stripping out plant in a plant room, you're going to affect not only the operational estates team, whatever's hanging off those plant rooms. And I found that we've really had to work closely with the operational estates team to make sure we've got buy-in from them. And it hasn't always been easy because some people like to step back and think, well, it's your project, it's down to you to deliver. But without that buy-in and that spirit of cooperation from the operational side of the capital projects team, you will run into problems because things will happen which could be unexpected. You could lose heating, you could lose power. So we've held a number of stakeholder engagement events with the estate's operational team to make sure they are fully briefed on what's happening, and then when it's handed over to them, they've got much better knowledge of how to manage the system. Just checking I'm doing okay for time. And the other, I think, lesson I've learned is really engage with the trust board at an early stage so that they've got the understanding of the strategy and the vision. And I think it's fair to say we've had a very supportive Chief Finance Officer, Julian Miller, at the Trust, and he has really sort of helped us navigate through that board structure and that strategic planning, and found the capital that we require to support the Salix schemes. So I think without buy-in from the most senior finance person, you will flounder. Lessons learned. I think, finance is key. Engage with them at a very, very early stage and throughout the projects, especially when you've got project overruns in terms of variations and you've got cost escalation. The earlier that you advise them, the better. I think my personal experience is we probably didn't scale up as much as we should have from an operational estates point on the delivery side. And if I'd had my time over again, I would have had more a more strategic approach to how we manage all 4 sites. We've tended to be a little bit silo in terms of the projects, and we have been really stretched with trying to deliver this level of investment over 4 hospitals. So if I'd had my time over again, I would have put a little bit more project management and admin support for the project managers that are delivering it from an operational point of view. Again, we've had some, moving on, D&O, ensure that you've got the capacity that you require for your air source heat pumps. We've got a particular problem at one hospital at the moment where we're trying to work with the D&O to get us some additional capacity. And in essence, what happened there is we, from the sustainability PDS projects, we secured increase to our capacity. What happened then is that the trust was successful in bidding for a elective hub, which is six theatres on the Solihull site, and which has used some of that capacity. So at the moment we're on the cusp of what we need for the air source heat pump and the elective hub. So we're working with the DNO to increase that capacity. Sort of mantra of mine is N+1. So I'm very nervous. I'm old enough to have had some challenging experiences within the NHS where no electricity, no heating, etc., etc. So I've been very insistent, to the point of obsessive, to ensure that when plant rooms and work is being undertaken, everybody's thinking about N+1. Nobody really cares whether you've got N+1 until something goes wrong. So I think, and certainly to the younger engineers, I've reinforced that position to make sure that at every point, wherever possible, N+1 remains, even if you have to bring in temporary boilers to backfeed heating systems while you strip out clarifiers and pumping systems. The question for me is, would I do it again? I just a little. What I would, but it has been very challenging. And I think when I look back on my career, I think I'll be very proud what I have achieved, what the team has achieved, and what the trust has achieved. And I think sometimes you just have to have a leap of faith. And I think as an engineer, we are here to solve problems, and that's what delivering these projects is about. It's about solving problems. It's about solving finance problems when you've got cost overrun. It's about solving problems when you've got valves that are not working. It's resolving problems where you get air handling units that are feeding theatres that you need to close down for 2-3 days, and theatre capacity. The clinical teams do not want to lose clinical capacity. So you also have to learn the art of negotiation as you go through these projects. So the answer was I would, but it's been tough. Okay, I'm about done. Anybody got any questions? Any
questions for Dave? I'd like to ask, you talked about PFI. How was the interaction with the PFI on one of these schemes? Because that can come with its own challenges, can't it?
So particularly with PDS4, that is related to PFI building. So again, I mentioned about the art of negotiation. So I'm having conversations with the PFI to say this is a real opportunity for both the trust and for the PFI to get some investment to solve the chilling problem. And I'm trying to lobby them as a spirit of cooperation, and I reinforce that we're engineers, we're here to solve problems. I'm not wanting to sit down and look through a 300-page contractual document to deliver this project. I said one way or the other, we've got to find a way to make this happen. So if we do get the green light from Salix, I'm reasonably optimistic that I can get the PFI to a place where we can do the work that we set out to do, which is replace 4 chillers with heat recovery and if you like, proof of concept for geothermal. But it's tough again.
So you've got a full house here, Dave. No other questions for anyone?
Just one. How did you find integrating your electric CSSD and sterilisation equipment?
We've got sterilisation equipment. We had a problem with pathology, and we had to put an electrical steam generator. So that was the only impact really. It was a couple of clarifiers within our pathology block.
Congratulations. And I have to say, would you do it all again? What would you do differently? What would you change? What lessons would you learn?
Careful what you ask for, Adele.
I think we as a trust, we should have geared up more. We should have had more people to help us manage that process. I think that's probably been the biggest lessons learned. I think also variations where main contractors are coming at you with variations where unforeseen items. I think maybe we could have been better prepared for that. We've had one or two battles along the way where we've had cost overruns. So I think that those would be the two. I think we as a trust we should have geared up a little bit more, and we should have managed the variation process a little bit slicker. PDS4, I think I'll be done.
Okay, we can show our appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.